everyone, this is Svetlana. Welcome to another Alteneu video. In this video, I will be sharing a simple floral hugs and kisses card featuring an easy non-white background and coloring with artist markers. For my card, I will be using the Everlasting Happiness stamp set, namely, I will be stamping this beautiful wreath. For stamping, I will be using my Misty, and I will be stamping onto a solar white cardstock panel. The size of my panel is 3 3/4 and 5 inches. As you can see, the stamp is bigger than my panel and it laps over the panel edges, which wouldn't be much problem if I only needed to stamp it once. But I want to have an option of double stamping after I finish coloring this piece. So I will be using this strip of thick cardboard as a stopper. I'm placing it into the Misty base corner and then placing my panel right next to it. This piece of cardboard creates kind of a new corner for my panel, at the same time not preventing the stamp to be placed onto it. After I choose the stamp position, I mounted it to the Misty lid. Now one small trick I want to share. This circle part of the stamp is too flexible to hold its perfect round shape. You may notice that my initial placement is crooked. I'm fixing it by unmounting this part of the stamp and dropping it back onto the lid. After several times of doing it, I'm getting the placement I am happy with. For stamping, I'm using the permanent black ink. I choose this ink as it's alcohol marker safe, and I'm planning to color the image with artist markers. Next, I'm stamping the wreath onto my panel and then stamping it one more time onto a masking paper. I'm putting the Misty aside for now, but I'm leaving the stamp mounted in it. And now I'm cutting out the mask using my scissors. I'm trying to cut it along the inner part of the image outline. And next, I'm placing the mask onto the corresponding part of the stamped image on my panel. It's the only part of the stamped design that I'm masking. All small elements I'm leaving not protected, so to speak. Next, I will be blending the frosty pink ink onto the panel. When I do ink blending, sometimes after picking up ink from the ink pad, I like to kind of stamp it aside onto a scrap piece of paper. This helps to prevent having harsh lines of blending. Also, I should say that Altenew inks blend very well, and even if you have some small unevenness, it smooths out after a couple of minutes. Also, when I blended one part of the panel, I'm holding it with a sticky note, so my fingers don't touch the already blended part, which can cause some fingerprints situation. One of the most exciting and satisfying experience of a card maker is of course removing a mask. I didn't speed up this clip on purpose, so you can also feel it. And next I will be coloring the image using the artist markers. I'm starting with the blue trio of Ocean Waves, Dusk and Desert Night markers. First, I'm doing a basic blending of lightest to darkest and darkest to lightest. I don't really care about light sources and stuff like that. I'm making the petals, tips and bases darker than the middle parts, but that's about it. After I added the base blending, I like adding some interest with thin strokes. I'm trying to imitate that style of adding details to a colored image with pencils. To make the strokes as thin as possible, I'm holding my marker almost vertically above the cardstock and trying to touch it with the very tip of the marker brush tip. I'm adding these strokes with the darkest marker in my trio, which is Desert Night. And then I'm blending them out a bit, adding some strokes of the middle color, which is Dusk. I really like this style of adding details with pencils. But I don't have nerves to work with pencils. It takes like a million years to finish, and fingers hurt after that. So I'm kind of cheating here, trying to achieve the same effect with markers. I colored two flowers in blue, and the third one I will be coloring in pink. Using the Frosty Pink, Cotton Candy, and Coral Berry markers. Here I didn't really like the darkest color in my trio for the brush strokes, so I'm using the Ruby Red marker for that. And I'm blending it out with the Coral Berry marker. Next, I'm quickly coloring the small flowers using the Ruby Red and Coral Berry markers. And then I will be coloring the flower middles and leaves using the Dweck black marker. I didn't mask all those small elements before ink blending, as knew that it wouldn't matter. Since I plan to color them over with pink color, which is the same as the background, and black, which covered ink blending anyways. Next I will be stamping over this image again using the black ink. I'm doing this to make the outlines darker, as they kind of fade out covered with ink blending and marker coloring. I'm placing my panel back into the Misty, right next to the strip of cardboard I used when stamped the first time. This should guarantee the perfect position of the panel. However, a small prayer that paper won't shift won't hurt on this point as well. As I put a lot of work into this piece, and ruining it with double stamping would be very annoying. You can see how slow I'm opening the Misty, being afraid that I ruined the piece. Which I didn't, and the result is totally worth all the stress. I like how crisp and intense the image outlines look. For the sentiment, I will be white embossing on black Hugs and Kisses phrase from the Halftone Hearts stamp set. There is also a matching die for this sentiment, so I will be die-cutting it as well. I mounted my panel onto a white card base. Then I popped the sentiment on top. And lastly, I'm adding several black crystals. I hope you like the card I showed today, and maybe some tips I shared here can be helpful for you as well. If you have any questions, don't hesitate asking them in the comment section below. Have a wonderful day. Bye.